Today I want to tell you a story about two consultants. Started about the same time, and then 6 months on, one consultant is confused, overwhelmed, and actually running out of cash, where another consultant is actually feeling successful, in momentum, and has clients on their books. Let me show you the difference between those two consultants and how you can apply the lessons that they learned to your consulting business.
I will never be the same, 'cause that's what it takes.
Hi, my name's Russell Pearson. This is Your Consulting Business Podcast and episode 135. Today on the show, I want to talk about the case study between two different types of consultants, the different paths they took in the early days of their business, and choices that a lot of consultants make, especially early days when they are starting their consultancies, and really the lessons that you can learn from these case studies and things that you can apply to your business. Now, it doesn't matter whether this is your first business or whether this is a business, might be your third or fourth business. The lessons to take into a consulting business are actually quite different than what you might do in other businesses, right? So the actual format of how you go about getting clients is different than service. It's definitely different than product-based businesses, different than retail. It's basically different than in many other sectors. And if you remember from other podcasts in the past, I've talked about 276 different sectors is what I've worked in. And there are lessons that you can learn from different sectors that you can apply to other business models. But when it comes to the consulting business model, the coaching business model, the training, custom training business model, the business of expertise, there is a different way of doing things versus many of those other business formats. So let's talk about the two experiences. So let's talk about the confused consultant one, the one who gets to the end of 6 months and they're not sure why things are not working. And this is a bit of a classic case that I see happen time and time again. And often I'll have a conversation with a consultant early days in their business and they want to sort of pick my brain or ask me a few questions. And I hear what they're saying about their plan going forward, and sometimes I'll even suggest that they go a different way, and they're like, no, I want to do these things first. And when I ask them why they want to do these things first, it's because they just feel that they're the right thing to do. So-and-so has told them that this is what they should be doing, or they've seen other consultants do these, so they believe that this is the right way to do it. And it's interesting, them thinking that these are the right things, and I'll show you how they may not be the right things to do. It's usually because it's what's visible out there in the public. So one of the main things that the confused consultant, the consultant that doesn't really give themselves the best chance at the start does, is they engage someone to build a website, a big professional looking website. They've got professional photography done potentially, which I actually don't mind too much, but the actual website itself, completely unnecessary at the start of a consulting business. But they go and spend thousands of dollars in getting this professional, fantastic looking website together, and then they wonder why it's not converting people to sales. Well, there's two reasons when it comes to websites, especially consulting websites, that they don't convert very highly. Well, number one, the best converting websites are highly retail. They are like buy. They are pushing you to move into the next step very, very fast, and it has a perception of cheap and salesy, right? But that works, and it works in a lower cost environment. But if you're selling tens of thousands of dollars worth of consultancy, people do not buy that way. So if you're expecting that to happen on a website, then you're actually spending a lot of good money at the start of your engagement, which could be going to far more valuable activities. Some of those activities we'll talk about in just a minute. But the website, the problem with the website is it's almost like an expression of self. Once we've got a website done, it feels like we're ready to go. And so part of the consultant or the emerging consultant's journey is putting this website together because they feel like they've put themselves together and now they're ready to go to market. But in actual fact, you do not need a website, and some of the most successful consultants around the world don't have a website. They're actually working behind the scenes, not out there in public, and they're doing incredibly well. But it looks like most consultants are using a website to be successful because that's what we can see out there. The evidence that they exist is a website. But most websites convert at less than 1%, and they convert often even less for a consultant because we're trying to go for these high-end sales, right? And that's not how consulting is sold. Consulting is sold through conversation and engagement, and that doesn't happen on a website. So websites being the first thing that people spend money on is an absolute waste of money and time, and I'll explain why a little later. The second thing is they hire a book publisher, because if they have the book, if they've completed the manuscript and they're actually taking it to market, it's almost like the Wizard of Oz. We give him the diploma to remind him that he is smart, the Scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz, because he is smart, right? But he doesn't feel like he's smart because he doesn't have a brain, but the diploma allows him to feel like he's smart. Well, the book is the same sort of thing for the consultant, is that I have my book, therefore I must be smart. And so, again, people spend tens of thousands of dollars when it comes to publishing a book, and they feel that they can't go to market until they have those expertise actually in a published format because it proves their expertise. Again, a massive waste of money and something that you definitely do not have to spend early days in your business. There's all sorts of reasons to have a website. There's all sorts of reasons to have a book, and none of them have to do with you launching a successful consulting practice. And the third one that comes up, and again, it's because it's what they see other consultants doing, is that they go out and hire a social media assistant. Now, they do that because they feel like they need to be putting regular social media content out there because the people they believe are successful are out there doing that, so they should do the same thing as well. And so they go and hire an assistant for whatever amount of money that is, ongoing every single week, to publish this content out there without actually knowing what specific language and what specific steps they need to engage a prospect to do to actually buy from them. And so there's a lot of people putting a lot of effort into websites and into books and into publishing out there in the social sphere without actually really understanding what it takes to make a consulting sale. So if you are stuck in that boat, if you are doing that sort of activity, I'd love you to listen up and understand that, and if I've grabbed you just before you've actually gone to invest those things, even better, because you may look at the next couple of steps that we've got and go, that would be a better use of my time, investment, and energy. By the way, if you haven't already gone and seen it, there is a free resource at russellpearsonprograms.com, which you can download absolutely free right now. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and you get notified when the next episode becomes available. So from the confused consultant who's a little overwhelmed that they've just spent all this cash and they have no clients yet, let's move to the successful consultant who is actually winning clients and moving forward with momentum. Now, the difference there is that the person who is successful, whether they have been they're starting something new, or they're moving into a new consulting space, or maybe they're moving from a service business into a consulting business. The person who understands that strategic coaching from someone who knows how to help them get wins is the best investment they can make. Those people do very well because they engage with someone to help them shortcut the process. So they won't go to a strategic consultant or a strategic coach and say, I want to do these things, how do I do them better? The best version of that is they go to that coach and they say, I want to be successful in this space. How is the best way for me to go about doing that? And those are the people that become very, very successful fast. We engaged with somebody who was a client of ours just recently. Within 6 months, they had $350,000 running through the business by just doing a very few small steps within their organization before they even actually got anything online. They don't have a website. They don't have a position out there in the public talking about the thing they're doing. But what they do have is 13 clients that are paying them retainers on a monthly basis, right? Now, I'm not saying retainers are the best thing for everybody, but the whole idea is to have a strategic coach sit with you, work out a plan with you that's going to work for a business lifestyle that you enjoy. Now, if you get that person to work along with you, you collaborate together and you come up with the best plan. So the idea of actually spending some money is spend it with somebody who's already been there and done that and actually can show you the shortcuts to accelerate your success. And most people, this is going to be on to number 2, the main thing that those people will help them do is create a prototype. A prototype offer. What are they going to go to market with? How do they take their expertise and bring it into a use case? No one really cares about what you know. There is a lot of talk about thought leadership and about putting those thoughts out there in the social sphere, whether you run a podcast or putting YouTube videos out or just like this one. But people starting that way, it's a long road. It's 2 years to actually get a good audience to actually start even listening to you. To shortcut that, you can just take your ideas and go, how do I apply these ideas to people getting results that they want to get? And that is the prototyping of offers, and then making those offers with your local network and then your local network's local network. In other words, speaking to people you know and saying, I'm looking for this sort of person to help them with this sort of problem. Who should I speak to? And so you prototype that out. And that doesn't mean you need to productize. That doesn't mean you need to have a landing page or a website or something to describe that. What you do is you actually come up with an offer structure, you talk to a person who might be interested, and you ask them if they would like help. And that's the fastest process. And so we've taught that to so many different people. We call it a referral by proxy. And in doing that, we help them capture their first 3 clients, then their next 5 clients, and then on and on from there. And generally, the next step after that is, number 1, do we enjoy the work that we've just captured? It is such a better conversation to actually have money in the bank and then discuss whether this is something I want to continue with, rather than trying to get it all right before you actually even make your first sale. And so we help people get clients first so that then we can refine what they're doing with those clients after. And part of the strategic coaching is not to get trapped in a corner. And we see that happen a lot too, where someone moves out of, let's say, a corporate role and they want to start a consultancy, but instead of actually starting a consulting business, they actually just become a contractor. And then they get maybe 1, 2, possibly 3 roles, and then they're just really busy doing someone else's job. That's not what we suggest, and that's why I suggest strategic coaching, so that we can make a plan that's going to suit you now and allows you to have options in the very near future. So once you've got a prototype working, and there might be some variations with that, there might be some iterations with that, but they're fast. I want to see someone winning clients in less than 3 months. Actually, I want to see them winning clients in less than 2 months. But the only way they can do that is if they actually get clear about an offer very fast and start having those conversations. We show people how to do that in both the Forge and the Guild. And if you're interested to know more about those, you can actually go and visit theconsultingguild.com. So the third step is, once we decide that this is the sort of work that we like doing, at that point we build the position. At that point we actually start going, all right, we want to build and digitize your presence, and then we want to start a marketing engine to bring more people in to buy the thing that you want to offer. But we test the offer first. We make sure it's an offer that both the client wants and is willing to pay for, but also that you want to deliver. Right? There is no point building a business around something that you don't want to deliver just because you were desperate to get the work. And so that's why we have strategic coaching up front. That's why we prototype offers and we get you those clients fast. And that's why finally, after all agreements are done, we're happy with the actual path that we're going through, that's when we start digitizing our position. Yes, websites can come in after that, but usually a good solid LinkedIn profile will get you there. And so we clean up the LinkedIn profile, we make sure that we are talking to the right target market, we form some sort of digitization, whether that be lead magnets or even some form of website so that we've got a presence. And then we start engaging people through communication. And that communication is often email communication. Yes, there is probably a social media element, but usually the social media element is to bring people from the social space into our world. And there's so many different ways that we can build a community barrel around that concept. So that's really the difference. We've got the confused consultant who spent all their money early and actually spent a lot of time going to market. We've even had people that we've spoken to where they might have a 1-year runway of cash before they have to go back and get a job. They're 6 months through that process, but they're just happy to wait for now and just feel it out. They're not doing anything. They're not speaking to anybody. They're not getting the advice strategically that they would need to make that successful within that 6 months of time. And those people end up going back and getting a job. When you leave your corporate role, it is not time to take a holiday. Unfortunately, it's not time to take a holiday. Take a short one, but within a month, you at least want to be having a plan. You want a plan that you didn't create yourself. You want a plan with people who've done it before. You want a plan that can accelerate your results. Otherwise, you're going to be in 6 months to 2 years just in testing and measuring and trying to do it on your own. And so the alternative is the successful consultant who actually got the advice, listened to the advice and executed it, right? They tested in the market quickly. They engaged with enough people to get maybe 5 clients up early, so they had the cash flow. They got to be able to work with those clients to see, is this the sort of work that I really want to do? And then they designed a lifestyle business, which they then cemented with some marketing and digitization so that they had that business near on pilot, right? Near on autopilot, because you don't necessarily want to run the business on autopilot if you're in a consulting situation. You want to be engaging in the business. If you don't want to actually run a consulting business where you're talking to people, that you're actually doing the consulting, well, you can set up that business to actually work without you, and we've worked with plenty of clients who do that, but it will be a longer road and a very different road, and that's why strategic coaching actually can help you get there as well. The question is, what sort of business do you want? You don't have to make that decision on your own. You don't have to do that without somebody who's never done it before, right? So a lot of the time you're out there on your own. Maybe you're speaking to a mate at the pub. Maybe you're speaking to family members or some other person who started a business in whatever area, and you're taking their advice. My suggestion is, don't take the advice of people who haven't built the consulting business before. Don't take the advice of people who haven't been where you want to go, because those people only have an idea of what it's like. 276 different sectors, and I can tell you all the different business models are quite different. There is some crossover through some of them, but a service-based business does not sell in the same way as a consulting-based business. And if you want to know how to run a consulting-based business, you've got to speak to someone who can accelerate that type of success. So what are you going to do is the question. Are you going to get that advice? Are you going to prototype? Prototyping is just such a fantastic way of testing and measuring fast, but also getting money while you're doing it. You can fall over clients on the way through of having those conversations. And once you've actually started engaging the right type of clients, that's when you start spending and investing money on infrastructure. Don't invest it early. You're not building a retail business. You're not building a product-based business. You're building a consulting business, which is actually off the back of your own brain, which means that the profits are very, very high. The overheads are very, very low, which means that you've going to make some money if you get those clients running, but you need to have those clients so that you got the cash flow to stay in momentum. I would love to know, what are some of the mistakes that you made when you actually got started? The fantastic thing about my situation is I've made all sorts of mistakes along the way. The first big mistake that I made when I started even my service-based business was I went and bought this $1,500 desk. Now, in today's money, that might be a $5,000 desk. And I thought, I'm going to have this fantastic desk and I'm going to sit at it every day and I'm going to do all my work there. And I've only kept it because it's a reminder of where not to spend money. There is no need in spending money on infrastructure that doesn't serve the business short term. It's the short-term investments that accelerate your success that allow you to actually spend a lot more money once you've got that money on infrastructure and things that are luxuries really at the end of the day. But they're not the things to spend money on early in your business. But I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the mistakes that you've made in your business journey so far? What are some of the things that you would love to tell a previous version of yourself that maybe you could actually put into the chat as comments, and it might help someone else who's reading along after. My name's Russell Pearson. This is the Your Consulting Business Podcast, episode 135. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.